Hello, my name is Joe Archer, and today I'm going to speak to the claim that electric vehicles are the wrong choice for society's future. The problem with EVs is that they are an intermediate partial solution, kind of the way that vapes are slightly better than smoking, but not exactly not smoking. They are better than fossil fuel cars, kind of like coal was better than wood, and oil was better than coal, and now natural gas is better than oil. But they are ultimately just a completely unnecessary intermediate industry that will require trillions and decades to install, only to be replaced or removed like phone booths in the city. The reason this is that personal conveyance is not just about how you power it, it's also about the far more important issues of human gratification and human toil. Ultimately, fossil fuels will run out, and human conveyance will inevitably be powered alternatively, whether it is through misdirected government coercion or misdirected consumer choice. But how this future conveyance is powered is not nearly so important a choice as compared to how well that conveyance serves humanity. The powering of future conveyance will be green, regardless, if it is done in the most stupid and wasteful manner or done in the most clever and efficient manner. A simple examination of facts will show that the entire EV endeavor, while creating great achievements in the extremely useful technology of batteries, will be a tragic detour of resources if pursued as a principal means of human conveyance, and those resources are ultimately purchased by the unnecessary toil of the working class. EVs should not be pursued as the future of human conveyance for the simple reason that they are surface transportation, period. Surface transportation is a horrible intermediate conveyance solution, principally because it maintains the most restrictive destination options for humanity for as long as it delays the inevitable and ultimate implementation of flying cars. But aside from fantastically restricting future travel, it also saddles the future with not just enormous road maintenance toil, but also even greater traffic jams and a denuded and degraded environment and viewscape. It's not that EVs are a slightly less optimum solution for future conveyances. It is that they are only better than conventional cars in the very least necessary manner. While they do address a finite fossil fuel future, they completely ignore the elephant herd in the room, which are all the unnecessary disadvantages to humanity. As conveyance choices go, it is a D minus at best, and can only be said to not be a complete failure. Now, of course, everyone is a critic, and decrying other people's solutions is childish, absent an alternative solution. It is easy to say flying cars should be built if you don't know the first thing about the challenges they pose in their construction. So it is incumbent on an EV heckler to explain in sufficient detail how and why flying cars should be built instead of the EVs. At this point, I will explain how easy and inexpensive to build a flying car could and should be built. There are really only two principal expenses in a flying car that combined might only cost half of what conventional surface transportation costs. These are the fuel cells and the electric motor, which compares with the suspension, transmission, and engine of current cars. In the most logical conceptualization, a flying car consists of a unibody or frame designed to be rigid with airflow and fuel storage channels. Installed in or on this chassis is an electric motor driving an air impeller, which pushes air through the airflow channels to 3 points of directable, computer-controlled exhaust. The electric motor is powered by an array of fuel cells, which are themselves fed from a hydrogen-containing fuel storage compartment. This hydrogen storage would most reasonably be in the form of ammonia or a hydrogen-absorbing medium as opposed to compressed hydrogen. Another optional variation of a flying car is one in which the ammonia fuel is combusted in an internal combustion engine. In this conceptualization, the weight, cost, and efficiency of fuel cells is traded for the weight, cost, and inferior complexity of an internal combustion engine. While a flying car would be difficult to fly absent computers, current computer sophistication makes their operation infinitely more reliable than any human operation of conventional cars. Also, a flying car trades a complex transmission and suspension system for something as simple and low cost as a fan. In a first approximation of comparative cost, it is hard to see how a flying car could not be built for less than a conventional car, if not a lot less, especially considering that so much of any car's cost are the non-essential luxury features. Having described the basic engineering features, there are some associated engineering qualities and advantages which deserve to be noted aside from all the obvious advantages that flying cars offer. One is that a flying car designed on a ducted air model can both pressurize and heat a cabin as well as provide turbocharging if an internal combustion engine is used, at no additional cost or complexity. Also, a significant amount of afterburner thrust can be delivered if needed or desired, as the discharge air is uncombusted air. And if this afterburner quality is combined with the use of an electric motor, the flying car might be able to generate 5 times more short burst thrust than sustainable thrust. Now, in advocating for flying cars, the issue of increased fuel consumption needs to be addressed as clearly. A flying car would, on average, require much more horsepower and consume more fuel. However, these higher energy and fuel demands would be offset by shorter distances traveled and a far greater convenience and enjoyment by the user. And in the case of many, if not most commutes, trips in excess of 5 miles would almost certainly use less fuel, as the direct route and unhindered velocity would make up for the increased fuel usage in taking off and landing. Aside from convenience and simplicity advantages, it is necessary to speak to the issue of safety. Falling out of the sky is certainly one of the greatest concern. However, it is a rather simple thing to equip flying cars with both ballistic chutes and airbags, even external airbags. In that the terminal velocity of a flying car might be comparable to a small plane, the use of these devices can reliably eliminate nearly any fatalities in the event of power failure, if for no other reason but that a computer can provide the absolute best response and recovery actions. Then there's the issue of societal rules to accommodate a flying car future. Many see a future incapable of accommodating flying cars, but this is myopic. All that would be necessary is to assign flight vector ranges to altitude ranges. In effect, altitude would be used to separate cars flying in different directions. And with computers, these altitudes can be held within inches of accuracy. This discussion has focused on the engineering and economy of flying cars, while ignoring the obvious advantages, and so it deserves and needs to be stated. The flying car future would save so much more than the cost of building the cars by eliminating the need for most, if not all, roads. And if we are honest, there is a true and enormous cost that is never included in the calculation associated with indirect travel, severely limited destinations, and traffic jams. If a society were honest about what these costs might translate to in dollars, the case can be made that pursuing a surface-limited transportation future is 100 times more expensive than a flying car future. The final comment that needs to be made is the idea that we must wait on flying cars until a hydrogen economy can be implemented. This would be a tragic mistake and is so nearsighted. We will continue to use fossil fuels regardless of what transition dynamic is pursued. If we have to power flying cars using fossil fuels, it will still be better than replacing our traffic jams with electric vehicles. And it just so turns out that a hydrocarbon can be liberated of its hydrogen using high temperatures, so that we could still use fossil fuels just by removing the carbon on its way to the engine or fuel cell. Additionally, we already have an infrastructure to provide convenient access to liquid fuels. Whereas installing 1,000 amp car chargers all over the place will require enormous cost that always translates to human labor, using current fuels and replacing them with future fuels would not exact any cost whatsoever. So there you have it. That is my case for calling out our EV-centric overlords who are directing us down the primrose path of EVs. I assert that we, as a society, should not be building surface-limited conveyances and should immediately begin building flying cars. Surface-limited transportation is just so passe. I mean, for God's sake, Rome had roads. Let it go. When I look around, I see a nearly infinite landscape of national parks that I am effectively unable to ever access, and it is all because I can't afford a $4 million helicopter. And yet, for half the cost of a car, everyone could access these majestic and expansive places in nature if only our leaders had a clue. And this doesn't even touch the fact that we could have beautiful green parkways throughout our cities if they weren't instead paved over with concrete.